Okay, so we'll kick this off. Welcome to the webinar, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Pat. I'm the training manager here at Fronius Australia. And today it's going to be a fairly quick session, just covering some updates on our end. Okay, so on the agenda, we're going to look at the new mounting bracket solution, or relatively new mounting bracket solution. That's essentially used for stacking multiple Reserva battery towers in front of each other. So we'll look at when you use this bracket kit solution, what are the components in these mounting bracket kits, how many kits you require, and then how to install them as well. And we'll do an example there. Then we'll cover some tips and tricks and some frequently asked questions, mainly relating to communication cabling. And then lastly, we'll have a quick look, a very brief look at the Verto Plus, which is about to hit Australian and New Zealand shores very soon, and it's pairing with the Reserva battery. So those of you that were installing multiple Reserva towers when we first released the Reserva would have been doing it in the way that we've shown here on the left, right? So installed side by side. And we covered that in our last webinar. So you can always refer to that and distances, clearances, etc., and how you go about that. When you're doing it in front of each other, you need this mounting bracket solution. So that's allowing for that installation in a safe and sturdy manner. So that's where we have these mounting bracket kits. So you can see that there's two kits there, the dual mounting kit and the extension mounting kit. And I've also put in the product codes there so that you know exactly what you're ordering. So all the info I'm going to present on the mounting bracket solution can be found in the mounting bracket solution application guide, and that's attached to the webinar as a handout. So hopefully that's worked, but if there's any issues, just let me know and we can always send that to you. So there's two types of kits. So the dual mounting kit comes with two wall mount brackets, okay? So the dual mounting kit, it's always a starting point. So you need that for every multi-tower install when you're installing in front of each other, right? So you always need at least one dual mounting kit. So it comes with two wall mount brackets. As I said, those wall mount brackets will replace the standard wall mount brackets that you would find in the Reserva boxes, all right? So they're gonna allow for that multi-tower extension. Then it also has two extension brackets and two additional mounting screws. Then in the extension mounting kit, you have two extension brackets and two additional mounting screws. There's no wall brackets included because there's like an add-on kit. So it's required for each additional tower beyond the second tower. So if you're doing a third or a fourth tower, right? And the quantity that you need of these kits, it depends on how many towers you have and how many modules are in each tower. So how many battery modules that are there. Now these kits, they're only required when you're installing two or more Reserva towers that are in front of each other. Okay, so side by side, obviously you don't need it. And if it's just a standard single tower install, you don't require this kit. I also say we don't recommend using any third-party bracket solutions because those haven't been tested by Fronius. So as I said, how many brackets are required and how many kits are required depends on the size of the tower as well. Okay, so on the next slide, you'll see required number of kits. So these are the mandatory number of kits, brackets that need to be installed. Okay, and as you can see here, these red circles, that's going to be, that's showing you where you'd be installing these brackets. So here is a table that has been taken out of the mounting bracket solution application guide. So you can see if you had one tower, two towers, three towers, or four towers along the top, and then going down the side, if you had 2 battery modules, 3 battery modules, 4 or 5 battery modules, and then essentially it's telling you, how many kits you need there. All right, so obviously it's just one tower, no additional brackets are needed. You just use the standard brackets contained in the Reserva boxes. And then essentially you'll be adding on there. And as I said, you're always going to have at least one of those dual mounting kits. Okay. Then each extra tower adds on extension mounting kits proportional to the number of brackets per tower. All right. And taller towers, because they have more modules, need more brackets to be attached at different points. Right. So hence more kits are required. All right, so in terms of the mounting bracket installation, so essentially when installing the wall bracket, just note that the gap between the wall and the battery can be between 30 and 43 mils, okay? And you're going to use a M6 by 12 T30 screw at 5 Newton-meter torque to attach those brackets. Same with the extension brackets as well. And the gaps between each tower can be between 43 and 49 millimeters. So let's look at an example installation. So I've just selected one from the table that we saw before. So we're going to look at an example installation of 4 towers with 5 battery modules in each tower. So here it says you need 3 dual mounting kits and 6 extension mounting kits. So when you do your first tower, right, these are essentially the steps. So in our last webinar we did last year, we covered the Reserva installation in depth. So I won't go over all those details. You can refer to that webinar recording if you want to get further info there. But essentially this is how it's going to work. So you'll set up your base and ensure that it's level. That's really important. Then we'll add on 1 battery module, and then you'll fasten the 2 connecting tabs. So there's the connecting tabs here. So there's 1 on each side, and you'll install the first wall mount bracket. So you'll fasten it to the wall and to the battery. Then you'll add on 2 more battery modules, right? So now a total of 3 modules are sitting there, and you'll fasten these connecting tabs again. So there'll be 4 of them. Right, and then you'll install the second wall mount bracket. Then you'll add on 2 more battery modules, and that'll take you to the total of 5 modules. And you'll fasten again the 4 connecting tabs, and you'll install a 3rd wall mount to secure that 5th battery module to the wall. Then we'll add on our BMS at the top. And again, there'll be connecting tabs between the module to the BMS. And then once that's done, we can add on all the side covers, okay? The side covers. Then for the second tower, we set up the base again of the second tower. We add the first battery module. We'll install the first extension bracket, as you can see there. And we'll fasten the wall bracket to the extension bracket and to the battery. Okay, so I'll sit snugly with it. And then again, you'll be fastening those 2 connecting tabs each side of the modules, right? Then we'll add 2 more battery modules. So that'll take us to a total of 3 modules. We'll again fasten those connecting tabs on the side, and we'll add on another extension bracket, and we'll install it exactly the same way as we did this one. Then we'll add on our next 2 modules, again, fasten the connecting tabs. We'll put on another extension bracket, and then we'll attach our BMS unit to the top of the second tower. We'll fasten those 2 connecting tabs, and then we'll add on all the battery module side covers. Now for your 3rd, and if you had a 4th tower, it's an identical procedure there as the second tower. So you will be using that extension mounting kit, and exactly the same steps apply. All right, so that's the end of that section on the mounting bracket kit solutions. And now we'll move on to some cabling tips, tricks, and frequently asked questions. So remember, with the DC connection, for those of you that are familiar with installing the Reserva, for those of you that aren't, essentially it comes with two sets of connectors. So 6mm and 10mm are provided in the box. And in Australia and New Zealand, you'll be using those 10mm cable connectors, yeah? In terms of communication wiring, so to avoid crimping issues that can happen when you make up your own cables, we strongly recommend using pre-made Cat5 or Cat6 cables with an RJ45 lead. And just note that there are two types of data cables that you can get with different color orders. So you can see type A and type B down here at the bottom right. So make sure that you understand the color order that you've got and that you're using to make sure that you make the right connection back at the orange communication plug at the inverter. Right, so there are installers out there that are very used to using, say, a type A cable, and then they don't check and they've actually got a type B cable, and then you're making the wrong connections here. Yeah, so just make sure you check exactly which one you've got. Also, if you're using pre-made cables, ensure that these are the straight through connection type, okay, not the crossover type like on the right. All right, so straight through cables have identical pin-to-pin wiring, all right? So T568B to T568B, whereas crossover cables reverse the wires. Okay, so just make sure you're using the right one. When it comes to crimping cables, as I said, we highly recommend using pre-made cables for communication, as it cuts out a lot of potential errors that can happen there. However, if you are using crimped cables, then these are some of the issues that might happen. So you just might want to be aware of, if you're finding the communication's not working. So it might be that the wires are not positioned properly before crimping, or the wires are in the incorrect color order before crimping. Another one is wires not reaching those front pins. The contact doesn't actually pierce properly. So if you are making up your own cables, then always check your cables with a cable tester. There's plenty of different ones out there on the market, and also carry pre-made cables so you can check, if it's an issue with the crimped cable. Some other things that you can check or do. So if you're using one of those cable shrouds as shown below, so try removing that and remove the cable shroud, connect it again, and see how it goes. And just note, with those cable shrouds, they're not necessary if you're doing indoor installations. Another thing you can do is, try a pre-made Cat5/6 cable, which I said before. You can check the wiring at the orange communication plug on the inverter. Make sure that's all correct. You can check for any loose connections, so try doing a pull test. Check if the termination resistors have been installed. So there's RJ45 plugs, as you can see here. So if you've got multiple battery towers, it should be installed on the in port of the first battery tower and the out port of the last battery tower. If you only have one tower, then they should be on both in and out ports. And just note, if you are replacing cables, particularly important for replacing cables that are running between multiple towers, right? Make sure that you do a whole system restart after you've replaced those cables. So in terms of a system restart, that also in itself can just rectify comms issues at times. So that's another step that you could try doing in terms of troubleshooting. So how you go about doing that, turn off the inverter isolators, right? So AC and then DC isolator. Then turn off the battery by flicking the breaker down. Wait approximately 1 minute for all the lights to go off, and then turn everything on in the reverse order. If you have a situation where, say, the smart meter is being detected, but say the battery is not being detected, one thing you can do, which can rule out an issue with the pilot terminals, is you can switch between the Modbus O and Modbus 1 terminals, MO and M1 terminals on the orange communication plug. So switch the one that is currently used by the smart meter, take the smart meter connection off, and then connect that to the battery, and then you can see if it's working or not, and then yeah, you'd know if it's an issue with the terminals on the pilot itself or some other issue. If you have a situation where the battery was detected previously, so communication was fine, and then you lost the comms afterwards, what you can try to do is using the dark start button to activate the battery. So first what we do is turn off the inverter, so AC isolator, then DC isolator, and then press the dark start button for about 5 seconds, and you should hear a clicking noise, and then the battery will turn on. After this, turn on the inverter, AC and DC isolator, and then essentially, yeah, hopefully the communication will be working. So we've included these frequently asked questions and a few more other things as well in the Reserva installation and commissioning quick guide. That's not attached here, but we can send it out to you. It's just about to be finalized. One last topic on cabling that I want to cover relates to the DC connections. So the Reserva uses MC4 connectors for its DC cables, as I was talking about before, with those different connector types, the sizes, right? So those MC4 connectors, they're Staubli MC4 Evo Store connectors. Now, some of our inverters, like the Verto Plus, also use a type of MC4 connector for connecting panel strings to the inverter. So I've included a couple of snips here from the Verto Plus data sheet, just to show you that it does specify there's two different types of MC4 connectors, as you can see here, for the battery connection and then for your DC connection here. So just to make sure that you are using the correct connectors, right? So this is from Staubli's website. Some MC4 connectors, some Staubli MC4 connectors are certified by Staubli to be mixed under certain conditions, like the Staubli MC4 and MC4 Evo 2, right? But the MC4 Evo Store connectors, they're specifically made for battery connection, right? And they're intentionally designed by Staubli to not be connected with the MC4 connectors used for PV strings, right? So generally speaking, if you mix connector types, that can lead to contact resistance. That extra resistance can lead to overheating, which could lead to melted housings and potentially more serious damage. But yeah, you really have to be forcing it in there if you're trying to mix around these two connection types, MC4 Evo Store and say one of the other ones. So, but yeah, just a reminder, please don't do that. Okay, and I was just mentioning the Verto Plus. As I said, I would give a quick overview here, as it's about to hit Australian and New Zealand shores within a few weeks. I'm sure a lot of you are excited for that product to finally arrive. So these are the power classes that will be coming to Australia and New Zealand, so 15, 20, 25, 30, and 33.3 kilowatts. All of these come with 3 trackers, so 2 DC inputs per tracker. Each input can convert 28 amps, so that's the usable current. Just note that's a maximum of 28 amps for each tracker, right? So you do have the 2 DC inputs, but per tracker, it's a maximum of 28 amps. And they have a short circuit current of 50 amps, so a lot of flexibility there, and you can parallel strings. The battery connection is also 50 amps, so allows for those high charge and discharge rates, which I'll show you on the next slide. Comes with integrated DC and AC surge protection devices. One thing I'll note here is that you can't upgrade a Verto to a Verto Plus like we do for the Gen 24 and Gen 24 Plus. So the Verto and the Verto Plus, they are 2 separate product lines, and yeah, you can't upgrade them in that way. The hardware is not the same. So this table shows you the max charge and discharge rates with the different Reserva and Verto Plus combinations. So your highest charge and discharge rate is going to be 16.38 kilowatts that you can basically get on any of the Verto Plus power classes, apart from the Verto Plus 15 kilowatt power class. So there you get 15 kilowatts, which is pretty good though, considering that you can get the full output of the inverter. So there's a lot more that we can talk about on the Verto Plus, but I'll leave it there for now. I just want to give you a little tidbit there just before it hits our shores. If you do have any further questions on the Verto Plus, or you want more detailed training with your team on this product, just reach out and we can organize that either with myself or one of the state managers. Okay, so we will open it up to questions now. So please put through any questions you have in the chat, and I'll start looking at those in a second. All right, so James, you'd asked about the spacing between the towers. So I'll just go back and show you that. So essentially between the wall and the first tower, we usually say 40 mils, but it's an adjustable range between 30 and 43 mils. And then the gap between multiple towers, when you use extension bracket, that's essentially, usually 46 mils is what we recommend, but you can also adjust that between 43 to 49 mils. Wayne, you've asked about, the MC4 store connector, and can it be forced into a normal MC4? I haven't tried it myself. As I understand, they designed it so that it can't, but I actually haven't tried this myself. But I can see if I can get my hands on some and let you know. Heidi, you've asked about, is it asymmetrical? I'm not exactly sure what you meant by that question, if you can clarify. In terms of the towers, the battery towers, if you're doing multiple battery towers on the one inverter, they all need to be the same size. I'm not sure if that's what you are talking about. Someone asked about whether there will be a recording for this webinar. Yes, there will be. I will be adding it up to YouTube. Michael, you've asked about how to do the conduit between batteries stacked in front of one another so that it's neat. Good question. I'll have a look at how some of our installers are doing it, and I'll come back to you. George, you've asked a similar question about cabling, so I'll come back to you on that one as well. Yeah, Cameron, so you'd asked about whether those EVCharger connectors are there in the box. Yes, they are. They are supplied. Michael had asked about, again, those MC4 EVCharger connectors and whether you can order them as a spare part. I believe you might be able to, I mean, it's a Staubli product, and you should be able to get that relatively easy from a lot of electrical suppliers, but I'll check if we have our own code for that in terms of Reserva. Gerardo and Michael, both of you had asked about labeling requirements in terms of Australian standards. I'll have to come back to you on that one and check exactly which stickers are required. George, yeah, just a general restart. So yeah, essentially what you'll do is you'll flick that DC switch up and then press that button once. And I believe it will be exactly the same. I don't see why not when you're doing that troubleshooting I was talking about before. Chris, you'd asked about other battery compatibilities on the Verto Plus. Yeah, it does support some other compatibilities. I'll send you the storage solution data sheet as well. Cam, you've asked about availability on the Verto Plus models. So essentially, they're hitting our shores in the next couple of weeks, essentially. So both Australia and New Zealand. So yeah, essentially, if you reach out to one of our authorized sales partners, they'll be able to give you a better timeline of when they can exactly deliver to you, and they're obviously taking orders already. It hasn't landed yet, so anything can happen on the water, or potentially issues at port. So fingers crossed, nothing there, but essentially, yeah, a couple of weeks is what we're looking at. Okay, Heidi, I see what you mean. You're talking about the power output. So like the Verto inverter, like our other three-phase inverters, it's usually symmetrical output, but with the Verto inverter and also with, say, our Simo Gen 24, another three-phase inverter, you can do asymmetric output, which is particularly helpful for our friends over in New Zealand. Okay, I will leave it there. There's a few questions that I'll definitely need to get back to, but we have run a few minutes over time. But I will go through all the questions and make sure that I get back to anyone where I missed any of your questions. Okay, but if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to myself, or you can reach out to our team on PV-solutions-Australia at fronius.com, and we'll endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. Hope you found that helpful. Thanks a lot for joining, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.